Former FBI Director James Comey joins me now, and he's written a brand new book, Westport, a crime thriller set in Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut, so, I don't know, you want to make people think there's all this crime happening there, but that's okay. Congratulations on the book. So I just wanted to start with, of course, the news this week. And before the verdict, you had said it was highly likely to result in a conviction. That's obviously what happened. A year ago, you made this prediction about Trump wearing an ankle bracelet. Do you think he's going to be wearing an ankle bracelet or be in jail after the sentencing?
I don't know. Seems unlikely, but I've never seen a defendant beg for it more by attacking the judge, attacking the jury, attacking the witnesses. One of the key things in assessing what sentence is appropriate, a judge looks at, so are you sorry for what you did? Are you respecting the system? This defendant is running the other way.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass.
All right, guys, Dr. John podcast is here. So this is happening right now. At multiple Trump events, the president has stopped mid-speech to call for a doctor. But in every verified case, the medical emergency involved someone in the audience or nearby, not Trump himself. Despite social media speculation, the record is clear. Trump has not collapsed or had a medical emergency. And this is a big but, the reason these clips keep going viral, the reason every one of these interruptions becomes a massive story, is because they're landing in the middle of a genuine, legitimate debate about the health of a 79-year-old president. Because at the same time these events keep getting halted, actual cardiologists are going on the record with real concerns. A heart specialist named Dr. Jonathan Reiner watched Trump deliver what he called a manic national address and said publicly, quote, "I'm seriously concerned about the health of the president. He looks unwell. No one should be happy to see the president like this." That's not a random internet commentator.
And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
So your name was brought up in David Pecker's testimony, which was, of course, the first person who testified and it turned out to be quite an important part of the trial that we watched over the last 6 weeks. He described a January 2017 meeting that you attended, and Pecker testified that at that meeting, Trump said, quote, he, Pecker, probably knows more than anybody else in the room. Earlier this week, you said you didn't want to comment on a witness testimony, of course, before a jury rendered a verdict. They've rendered a verdict. Sounded like you also suggested his account may have been different from your recollection. So what is different? What was different from how you recollected that meeting?
Yeah, it seems like an honest misrecollection on his part. I was never in a meeting with Mr. Pecker. Listening to his testimony, I think he may have passed me in the hallway. So in his memory, I'm a giraffe. So I loomed large literally and figuratively, but I was never in a meeting like that. I wrote in a memo every conversation I had during that visit to Trump Tower that day, and it didn't include.
That's a prominent cardiologist looking at the president of the United States on television and saying he looks unwell. And it's not just behavior. Medical analysts have been picking apart the official White House heart memos and finding them weirdly vague. Cardiovascular Business, a specialist publication, noted that a memo on Trump's heart said there was no evidence of arterial narrowing limiting blood flow. That phrasing implies Trump had advanced imaging, probably a CT angiogram. But the memo doesn't share the actual numbers. No coronary calcium score, no ejection fraction, none of the data a cardiologist would actually want to see. It's reassurance without receipts.
So you were never in a meeting with David Pecker. Did you at all, or just not that meeting?
No, never.
Never in a meeting.
Never been in the man's presence.
Well, that is a difference. I wanted to talk to you about the other three cases because, there are, as I noted in my opening here, three other cases pending, including 2 federal cases that are indefinitely on hold. I want to play something you said to me last June about the timing, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I can't imagine a circumstance where the Department of Justice wouldn't, if they're going to charge him, wouldn't have done it so far in advance that we'd have a resolution before he took office.
We're a year later, and we're waiting for the immunity ruling of the Supreme Court. First of all, do you think they could still get the January 6th case done if the Supreme Court rules in the next couple of weeks? Do you think they could still get it done before November?
Seems unlikely. With that, either case will be done before. And I didn't mean Trump taking office. God forbid. I meant before the election, where I'm optimistic he will lose. But I don't think that either case on the federal side will be resolved by then.
Let me ask you about the attacks being used, because there are attacks on Judge Merchan, on Alvin Bragg, even posts of jurors. You've obviously said, it seems like you've said that this could weigh in on the sentencing, but I want to ask you more about the impact and the danger of that and how concerned you are about a repeat of the type of violence that we saw on January 6th.
So the real story here has 3 layers, and they stack on top of each other. Layer 1, the visible chaos. Trump's events genuinely do keep getting interrupted by medical emergencies. And even though they're happening to people around him, the optics of a president repeatedly shouting, "Is there a doctor?" while cameras get cut creates an atmosphere of medical anxiety around everything he does. Layer 2, the expert concern. Real cardiologists watching his public performances and his disclosed risk profile are saying on the record that they're worried. Layer 3, the information vacuum. The official memos keep declaring him healthy while withholding the specific data that would let independent doctors verify it. Put those 3 layers together and you get the situation we're in. A country watching its 79-year-old president through a fog of viral clips, expert warnings, and vague official memos, trying to figure out what's actually true about the health of the man holding the nuclear codes.
I'm very concerned about attacks on the individual participants in the justice system. It's the reason we created the Federal Witness Security Program to protect witnesses from mob threats like this. We have anonymous juries to try and protect them from mob threats. I never thought the mob threats would be coming out of the mouth of the Republican candidate for president. So I'm very concerned about that, concerned about wingnuts who are in MAGA world acting on that rhetoric to take steps to harm people. I'm not concerned, believe it or not, about large-scale violence. I think a deterrence message was sent, still being sent by the Department of Justice, that has scared the crap out of the would-be Capitol sackers, the would-be marchers. I think it's the reason you see almost no one at any of his legal appearances. So I'm less concerned about that. I remain very concerned about the individual threats and attacks.
I was at the courthouse on Tuesday, and it was a very small crowd. Let's hope that continues to be the case. So let me ask you about your book. I mean, truth can be stranger than fiction lately, I think it's fair to say, but this is your second book.
Let me walk through the actual incidents one by one because the details matter and the verified record deserves to be laid out precisely. Start with a rally in Kentucky. Trump is giving a speech. A woman standing just behind him on stage faints. Trump stops his speech. He calls for a doctor. And in a genuinely surreal moment, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who was serving in the administration, helps the woman before she's led off stage. Trump then resumes his remarks. The Associated Press covered it straight. The president's speech was briefly interrupted when a rally-goer fainted behind him, and he halted his speech to allow responders to assist. That's the verified account. Someone fainted.
It's called Westport. Tell us about your inspiration for this book, and what did you draw from your own experiences as people who are preparing to read it or buy it out there?
Well, it's a murder whodunit that is set in a different one than the first case, first book was in a mob case in Manhattan. This is in a financial manager, a big hedge fund in Connecticut. I happen to work at one. It's not a secret history of them, but it gave me enough knowledge to bring my characters to a very different world and tell a story that I think people will find addictive, a pretty good summer read for them.
And has this become cathartic for you, writing of these fiction books? This is not going to be your last one, it sounds like. It's your second one. Is it more cathartic than working in the FBI?
It's more fun than working in the FBI. You don't have to testify in front of Congress, for example. But I find it much more fun, harder than I expected, but much more fun than I expected, because I can take people and show them places I've known well through fiction with much more freedom than I ever imagined.
Director Comey, thank you so much for joining me on set this afternoon.
Trump paused. The event continued. Then there are the White House incidents, and there have been several. Footage from various dates shows Oval Office and White House events ending abruptly after guests collapsed. In these clips, Trump halts mid-speech. Aides rush toward a fallen attendee. Press gets told, "Press out," and the cameras cut. One of these was a drug pricing announcement in the Oval Office that abruptly ended after a member of the gathering suffered a medical emergency, with press ordered to leave as responders worked. Another incident described a tense Oval Office moment where a person attending the speech suffered a medical emergency, forcing Trump to halt his address midway. Trump later resumed and expressed concern for the attendees' well-being. Then there was a Hanukkah event at the White House. Trump is speaking, and suddenly he stops and shouts, "Is there a doctor?" An audience member was having what reports called a medical episode. The live stream coverage described the moment as a health scare. But again, the person having the episode was an attendee, not Trump. Now, why do these incidents keep happening? Part of it is just math and crowds. Trump holds a lot of events. Events pack people into hot, crowded rooms, sometimes standing for hours. People faint at crowded events. That's been true at political rallies forever, for every politician. Elderly donors and guests attend White House functions. Statistically, if you hold enough events with enough people, medical incidents happen. There's no verified evidence of anything more mysterious than that. But here's why each incident detonates online anyway. Every one of these clips, Trump stopping mid-sentence, the shout for a doctor, the press being rushed out, the feed cutting to black, looks exactly like what a Trump health cover-up would look like if there were one. The camera's cutting is standard protocol to protect the privacy of the person who collapsed. But to an audience already primed by years of presidential health secrecy, a cut feed reads as concealment. So the clips spread with misleading captions. Millions of people see 5 seconds of chaos without context, and the narrative writes itself. And the narrative has been fueled because of what the actual doctors are saying. Let's talk about Dr. Jonathan Reiner, because his comments are the most significant expert statement in this whole story. Reiner is a prominent cardiologist. He was involved in the care of Vice President Dick Cheney. He's a serious figure in cardiovascular medicine. He watched Trump deliver a national address that Reiner characterized as manic accelerated speech with apparent distress, and his response was blunt. "I'm seriously concerned about the health of the president. He looks unwell. No one should be happy to see the president like this." Think about the weight of that. A leading cardiologist is not diagnosing Trump. He can't. He hasn't examined him. But he's doing what doctors do when they observe concerning presentation. He's flagging it. Accelerated pressure speech in an elderly patient is the kind of thing that makes physicians want to look closer. In Reiner's framing, no one should be happy to see the president like this, cuts across partisanship. He's saying this isn't about politics. It's about what he's observing with a trained eye. Then there's the memo problem. Cardiovascular Business analyzed the White House's heart health disclosures and called the key memo weirdly vague. Here's the issue. The memo says there's no evidence of arterial narrowing limiting blood flow. That specific phrasing strongly implies Trump underwent advanced cardiac imaging, something like a CT angiogram. Fine. But if you did the imaging, you have the numbers. A coronary calcium score, the single most useful number for assessing heart attack risk in an older patient. And ejection fraction, the basic measure of how well the heart pumps. The memo shares neither. It offers the conclusion without the data. Why does that matter? Because in medicine, the data is the point. Any cardiologist reading "no arterial narrowing limiting blood flow" immediately asks, okay, what was the calcium score? Was there narrowing that doesn't yet limit flow? What's the ejection fraction? The absence of those numbers doesn't prove anything is wrong, but it means independent doctors cannot verify the rosy conclusion. It's trust me medicine from an institution with a decades-long track record across both parties of shading presidential health disclosures toward sunshine. And Trump himself has history with heart rumor drama. Back during his first term, after an unscheduled Walter Reed visit sparked speculation, Trump mocked the rumors at a Florida rally, claiming the media said he'd had a massive, unbelievable heart attack and boasting about his gorgeous chest. His doctor at the time said the visit was a routine physical. That episode set the template that still holds today. Rumors surge. Trump mocks them with bravado. The official record says routine, and the underlying data stays locked away. So here's the honest synthesis of the verified record. The events keep getting interrupted, but by emergencies affecting attendees, not Trump. The president has not had a documented collapse or heart attack. And at the same time, a top cardiologist says his manic address left him seriously concerned. The heart memos withhold the key numbers. And the disclosed risk profile, 79 years old, 238 pounds, high cholesterol, chronic venous insufficiency, is exactly the profile that keeps cardiologists up at night. Both halves of that are true simultaneously. No confirmed emergency, plenty of confirmed reasons for scrutiny. Let me break down what this pattern really means. First, the distinction between emergencies around Trump and emergencies involving Trump is the most important fact in this story, and it's the fact viral clips systematically erase. Every verified incident, Kentucky, the Oval Office events, the Hanukkah moment, involved an attendee, not the president. If you build your understanding of Trump's health on those clips, you're building on a false foundation. The honest case for concern rests elsewhere. Second, and here's where the honest case lives, the expert commentary is real and significant. Dr. Reiner saying he's seriously concerned, saying Trump looks unwell after a manic address, is a credentialed cardiologist making an on-the-record observation about the president's public presentation. That's not proof of illness. Observation from a distance never is. But when specialists start saying out loud what they're seeing, it moves the health question from internet speculation into legitimate medical discourse. The vague memos are a self-inflicted wound. If Trump's heart numbers are genuinely excellent, releasing the calcium score and ejection fraction would end half this debate overnight. Great numbers are the easiest thing in the world to publish. The choice to publish conclusions without data, no arterial narrowing, limiting blood flow, full stop, invites exactly the suspicion it's trying to prevent. Either the White House doesn't understand how doctors read these memos, or it understands perfectly and is choosing opacity. Neither option builds trust. Fourth, the interruptions, even though they involve other people, are still doing political damage to Trump. Optics don't care about footnotes. When the President of the United States repeatedly appears in clips shouting, "Is there a doctor?" while feeds cut to black, the ambient association between Trump and medical emergency hardens in the public mind. It's unfair in the technical sense, he wasn't the patient, but it's also partly a product of his own White House's information strategy. When you've trained the public to expect concealment, every cut camera becomes evidence. The manic address critique deserves to be taken seriously on its own terms, separate from cardiology. Multiple observers describe that national address as pressured, accelerated, agitated. For a president making decisions about war with Iran, emergency powers, and confrontations with the courts, public presentation under pressure is relevant data. The presidency is a judgment job. When trained physicians watch a national address and come away seriously concerned, that's not gossip. That's the kind of signal the 25th Amendment was written to eventually address in extreme cases. Nobody serious is saying we're there, but the people whose job is to notice are noticing. Sixth, context makes this bigger than one man's checkup. This is the same period when House Democrats reportedly weighed a 25th Amendment effort after the Iran conflict. The same period when the White House was releasing memo after memo, the venous insufficiency disclosure, the imaging release, the physical with its follow-up echocardiogram, each one timed to smother a new cycle of speculation. The health question and the power question have fused. Every medical memo is now also a political document, and everyone knows it. The double standard cuts both ways, and honest viewers should hold both. Trump's movement spent years dissecting every stumble and verbal glitch from Biden, demanding cognitive transparency, arguing that an aging president was a national security risk. Those arguments were legitimate then, and they're legitimate now, applied to a 79-year-old president with disclosed risk factors and vague heart memos. Fitness scrutiny is not partisan. It's the baseline diligence a democracy owes itself, whoever is in office. Eighth, beware the misinformation economy on both ends. One end fabricates Trump collapses and heart attacks that never happened. Those claims are debunked by the verified record, and spreading them discredits legitimate concern. The other end dismisses every question as a hoax and treats vague memos as gospel. The truthful position sits in the middle and is plenty dramatic on its own. No confirmed emergency for Trump, real expert concern, real risk factors, and a White House that keeps choosing reassurance over transparency. What happens next, because this story has clear tripwires? Watch whether the White House ever releases the actual cardiac numbers, the calcium score, the ejection fraction. Watch whether more physicians join Reiner in going on the record. Watch the next physical's weight number. Watch whether future event interruptions keep getting the camera's cut treatment, or whether the White House learns that transparency in the moment kills conspiracy theories faster than any statement afterward. So here's the bottom line. Trump's speeches keep getting halted by medical emergencies, real ones, verified ones, happening to the people around him. Trump himself has no documented collapse and no documented heart attack. And anyone claiming otherwise is lying to you. But the legitimate story underneath the viral noise is arguably more serious than the fiction. A 79-year-old president near clinical obesity with a chronic circulation condition and high cholesterol, delivering addresses that a leading cardiologist publicly calls manic and concerning, protected by heart memos that assert health while hiding the numbers that would prove it. The emergencies on stage keep ending. The questions about the man at the podium keep growing. And until the White House decides that real data beats managed reassurance, every halted speech, every cut camera, and every vague memo will keep feeding the one question no press release has managed to kill. What aren't we being shown? There's a deeper media dynamic here worth unpacking because it explains why this cycle never ends. Every interrupted event produces two competing edits of the same footage. The full clip shows an attendee collapsing, Trump pausing, help arriving, and the event resuming. Mundane, even reassuring, since Trump's response in these moments has generally been to stop and call for help. The viral clip shows 5 seconds. Trump mid-sentence, the sudden halt, the shout for a doctor, the feed going black. Same event, opposite impressions. And the viral edit always wins the algorithm because 5 seconds of apparent crisis outperforms 2 minutes of context every single time. The White House's press handling makes this worse, not better. The instinct in every one of these incidents has been the same. Clear the room, cut the cameras, say as little as possible. From a privacy standpoint, protecting collapsed guests from being filmed is decent and correct. But from an information standpoint, the pattern of press out and black screens is a conspiracy theory factory. Compare that to how transparent organizations handle public medical incidents. A quick statement within the hour. The person is receiving care. The event resumed. Here's what happened. Simple, fast, complete. The vacuum is always filled by someone. And when the White House declines to fill it, the internet does. Now, let's talk more about the manic address itself, because Dr. Reiner's reaction wasn't a one-off hot take. It crystallized something a lot of observers have been circling for months. The national address that prompted his comments featured what viewers across the spectrum described as unusually rapid, pressured delivery. Reiner cited the accelerated speech and apparent distress specifically. In clinical settings, pressured speech in an elderly patient prompts questions about cardiac status, about medication, about sleep, about neurological function, about stress load. None of those questions can be answered from a television screen. And Reiner didn't pretend to answer them. What he did was refuse to pretend he saw nothing. He looks unwell, Reiner said. No one should be happy to see the president like this. That last line is the tell. It's a doctor explicitly telling partisans on both sides that this observation isn't a weapon. It's a warning. And the warning lands harder because of what the official record already concedes. Recall the disclosed baseline. 79 years old, 238 pounds at the May physical, up 14 pounds in about a year, close to the clinical obesity threshold by the report's own language. Hypercholesterolemia in the history. Chronic venous insufficiency, officially diagnosed. A follow-up echocardiogram performed specifically because of intensified scrutiny of his cardiovascular health. Every one of those facts comes from the White House's own releases, not from critics. The official record itself describes an aging man accumulating cardiovascular risk factors and then stamps the word excellent on the summary page. That's the disconnect. The vague heart memo makes it unbridgeable. Cardiovascular business put it plainly. Doctors are still unsure about Trump's heart health after the weird memo. The phrase, no evidence of arterial narrowing limiting blood flow, is doing a lot of careful work. Narrowing that limits blood flow is one specific threshold. A cardiologist will want to know, is there narrowing that doesn't yet limit flow? Plaque that's building but not yet obstructive. That's precisely what a coronary calcium score quantifies, and precisely what the memo omits. Same with ejection fraction. The memo asserts strong cardiovascular performance without publishing the one number that defines it. When a document is written that carefully, specialists notice the craftsmanship, precision in what's claimed, silence on what's measurable. That's not how you write when the numbers are trophies. That's how you write when the numbers are private. To be scrupulously fair, there's an innocent explanation available for every piece of this. Presidents are entitled to medical privacy like anyone else. The memos may omit numbers out of standard practice rather than concealment. The interruptions really are attendee emergencies. Trump keeps a schedule of rallies, travel, long events that many younger politicians couldn't sustain. And his supporters reasonably cite that visible stamina as evidence the memos are right. The manic delivery that alarmed Reiner is, to Trump's base, just Trump being Trump, the same high-energy performance style he's had for decades. All of that might be the whole truth, but a democracy shouldn't have to choose between blind trust and wild speculation. And right now, those are the only options on the menu. There is no independent verification mechanism for presidential health. The physician reports to the patient. The disclosures are curated by the patient's staff. Congress's only tool, the 25th Amendment, is a constitutional sledgehammer. requiring the cabinet and 2/3 of both chambers. Useless for anything short of manifest incapacity. Between memo and sledgehammer, there is nothing. No neutral panel, no mandatory disclosure standard, no audit. That institutional gap, not any single incident, is the real story. And it will outlive Trump. Every future president of either party will age inside the same black box unless the system changes. Connect this back to the stakes, because that's what elevates this above celebrity health watching. During the exact months these events were being halted and these memos were being parsed, Trump was threatening to resume all-out war with Iran, extending ceasefire deadlines, fighting the Supreme Court over his executive orders, and reshaping the federal government. The address that left Dr. Reiner seriously concerned wasn't a ribbon cutting. It was a national address from a commander-in-chief managing an active international crisis. When physicians question the presentation of the person making those calls, they're questioning the operating condition of the machinery of state itself. That's why this matters. Not the feigning rally-goer, not the cut cameras, the judgment, stamina, and clarity of one 79-year-old man on whom everything currently depends. So keep both truths in your pocket. Truth 1, Trump has not collapsed, has no documented heart attack, and the viral clips of halted speeches show emergencies happening to other people. Say that clearly every time, because accuracy is the price of credibility. Truth 2, the legitimate concern is real, growing, and voiced now by credentialed cardiologists looking at a manic address, a rising weight number, a chronic diagnosis, and heart memos engineered to reassure without revealing. The speeches keep stopping for other people's emergencies. The question that won't stop is about the man at the podium. And the only thing that can finally answer it, real numbers, real transparency, real independent verification, is the one thing the White House keeps refusing to provide. One last thought on where this goes from here. Patterns like this don't resolve quietly. They resolve in one of two ways. Either the White House eventually opens the books, publishes the cardiac data, invites independent review, and the speculation starves for lack of oxygen, or the gap keeps widening. More interrupted events, more viral edits, more vague memos, more physicians going public, until some future moment forces a question in a way no press release can manage. History suggests which way institutions bet, and history also suggests they usually bet wrong. The Wilson White House thought it could hide a stroke. The Roosevelt White House thought it could hide a failing heart. They were right for a while, and then permanently, they weren't. The truth about a president's health has a perfect long-term record of coming out. The only variables are when, how, and how much damage the concealment does on the way. That's the bet Trump's White House is making with every vague memo and every cut camera feed, and the whole country is standing in the blast radius of the outcome.